this video today is really a reaction to my last video. My last video I did was on not reading, and the break I took from reading after my MA. I didn't really plan on taking it, it just kind of happened. And as soon as I kind of finished that video, I just obviously continued to think about the subject, and so many of you had really interesting different perspectives on the topic, and a lot of you had gone through similar situations. And I realised after filming it and after actually going through all of the comments when people were starting to react to it, is that with me and a lot of you, reading is such a big part of our identity, and therefore if one of your main kind of factors in your identity is being a reader, what happens when you stop reading? And this thought led me on to the many digressions that my brain does with pretty much everything. And I'm kind of obsessed with identification factors. I'm not necessarily talking about gender identity or sexuality or political, identifications, although I think they are really, really important and make up a huge part of everybody's identity. And identifying yourself, putting a label on yourself is often a way of owning yourself, and actually a very empowering thing to do. But I'm talking more about the stuff that is purely to do with personality, like the fact that I'm a reader or a student or a photographer or whatever. And I realised that every time I've kind of gone through these different stages in my life, I've like really held on to one of those identifier things, really hoping this makes sense and is kind of relevant to the last video. And I think a couple of conversations that came out of the video was the fact that yes, I think I was worrying more about if I was a reader, would that identity be taken away from me, or does that identity actually match who I am now? And I know logically and in reality that identities ebb and flow. Your personality ebbs and flows and it changes over time. Of course, you're never going to be this one static person. You're always going to be changing just as your priorities change, which was really the point in the video. But thinking back, when I was at university, my biggest part of my identity was being a student, and I took so much pride in being a student, and particularly being a student at my university, my specific university. And then when I finished my MA, I just kind of felt like, who was I? I'd considered myself a student for so long that now I wasn't. So I like grasped hold of the fact that I'm a graduate, and I still, even though obviously I am still a graduate, I'll always be a graduate, but I now really cling on to the fact that I'm a MA graduate, and I've had that history of experience because that was so important to me at the time. But as soon as I kind of came out of my MA, I became a bookseller, and then being a bookseller was like my big thing, and I was all about being a bookseller. And I think I have a very strong sense of identity, or at least I hope I do, and I am quite self-confident, but I do feel slightly lost when I don't have one of those things to cling on to. It's even like now in my very first video I did, the very first video I did since I came back to YouTube, I made a comment about how I still considered myself a YouTuber, but now I'm not making YouTube videos, I can't really call myself a content creator. So again, it's like this crisis over my identity and the things that were important to me. I don't know where this video is going, it's just something I've noticed about myself. And even now, I kind of cling on to the fact that I work in publishing. Really, I think we do all of these things to give our lives meaning. And I think that's really important. And sometimes I think those things in your personality or the things that you're passionate about, for me, one of the big ones is photography. Like, it's something I really love, but I always feel a bit weird calling myself a photographer because it has a certain weight to it. Like, there are some things in your identity you feel that you are maybe not entitled to. Like, anybody can kind of be a YouTuber, but a photographer has a certain high status. And I always just think I'm going to be one of these people that takes such pride in, being a reader or being, a YouTuber. But it kind of scares me, the idea that they are just surface level, right, in terms of like who I am. None of those things sum me up, but if you put them all together, I feel like that's me. None of this makes sense. Basically, what I wanted to talk about was the fact that I think my last video was as much about not a crisis of identity, but also a crisis of identity. I think it was just as much about the changes in my personality, or in my priorities in myself, or the space that I have in my life for the different parts of me that make up me. Ben, you've overheard this, haven't you?
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. In reality, there is no one filling out a form and saying, yeah, I don't think you can call yourself a reader because you haven't read that many books. Or you can't be classed a photographer because you just put pictures on Instagram. We're going to take that label away. It was just an interesting piece of self-reflection that I noticed. And I'm hoping that some of you may have also noticed it too. And I kind of wanted, a bit like the last video, to engage in a conversation with you. And I want to know how you identify in those kind of similar ways. And whether you, obviously it's healthy to ebb and flow in your personality, but are there some things that you feel are so integral to who you are, like me and being a reader or even being a YouTuber, that not being them is like too weird? You can totally tell I'm filming this on a long bank holiday weekend and I've been in the sun for a long time and I'm very pale, so if no one gets this video, I'm just going to totally blame it on sunstroke, which sounds like a Victorian heroine, doesn't it? Sound like a Jane Austen novel, like I need to go and have a lie down because the sun has given me a headache, like Fanny in Mansfield Park or something like that. See, still got those bookish references, obviously still a reader and a student. That was my MA right there. So yes, please tell me how you identify, which things are important to you. What would you like have on your Twitter bio? This is always how I think of it, like what have I got in my Instagram bio or in my Twitter bio that makes me who I am? I also want to check in about the fact that because obviously my channel is like me, my channel's identity is changing. Like I am not going to be doing as much bookish content, but so many of you have come to know me as just doing bookish content. So I'm even having this feeling of like, do I have permission to move away from the identity I created online? Can I forge myself into something different? Or do how you identify stick in people's minds so much that you can't really change even as you grow older? Again, another thread, another digression. But yeah, how do you identify? It's been a long time since I've checked in with you, and I'm aware that you will have also changed along with me, especially if you've been watching me for a long time, because I look back at my old videos and I started filming 6 years ago. So we've all definitely changed in those 6 years, or I hope I have. It'd be weird if I was exactly the same as when I started, just out of my GCSEs. But yeah, talk to me.